Welcome to another combat mission video. I recently hit 500 subscribers, and this is my 10th video, so I wanted to do something a little bit different to mark the small milestone. We're leaving World War II behind and heading to Combat Mission Black Sea for a large meeting engagement played against Taki. I'll be commanding a US force, with Taki taking the Russians. I played a few games of Shock Force 2, but most of my combat mission time has been spent on the World War II titles, so I don't have as much familiarity with the modern equipment. This also won't be a modern force overmatching the Syrians, it'll be much closer to peer-to-peer. To prepare, I played one of the Black Sea scenarios as the US, and I lost, so my confidence going to this game is a bit low. Let's take a look at the map. To match the large-sized game, we've picked a large map with a variety of terrain types. The US deployment zone is along the three major roads at the bottom of the map, with the Russians deploying along the same roads but at the top of the map. The roads themselves are not completely flat, with several small hills and height variations that will both block line of sight down portions of the road and provide opportunities to hull down vehicles. There's also a few turns in the roads that keep portions of them behind cover, so the approaches to the middle of the map are relatively safe, unless one of us were to get to the middle first. Closer to the US deployment side is a stream that starts off wide on my left and gets narrower as it moves across the map, before branching in the middle. As I would find out in the game, the wide water is crossable by infantry only, while the narrow water can be traversed by vehicles as well. There's 4 bridges across the water, located on each of the main roads, with the road on the right having 2 bridges in a line to cross both branches of water. Both sides of the water are lined with trees, which will provide both sides with ample amounts of cover from longer range engagements when crossing. But if there's units on both sides trying to cross in the same area, it will lead to some close range engagements. The US side of the water is up on a ridge. However, due to the trees on the opposite bank, I'm unsure how much of a line of sight benefit the ridge will be. It might offer good sight lines at a distance, but units closer to the ridge might be concealed by the treetops. The left side of the map has a small village, or maybe industrial area, with a rail line running across the entire map. There's some variation in building height, with a few 3-story buildings scattered around, as well as some sets of buildings sectioned off by walls, which will either need to be gone around or blown through. There's definitely the opportunity for building-to-building fighting. Both sides of the map have some hills, however the hill on the US side of the map is completely exposed with dubious sightlines, while the hills on the Russian side have some trees and can overlook more of the map. However, even from these hills, there is still limited view across the entire map, so this one looks like most of the action will be around the midline. The 2 major objectives are around the rightmost crossing and the village itself. Both objectives span across the water, so not only do we need to secure our side of the crossing, but we also need to push over the water and clear out the opposite side as well. Since I don't play the modern titles as much, I really wanted to make use of IFEs, so I started with a combined arms task force mounted in Bradleys, and then cut it down from the full battalion until it fit the roughly 13,000 points available. I kept a company consisting of 3 platoons, 2 rifle platoons in Bradleys, with the 3rd platoon consisting of 4 Abrams tanks. I attached a breach team and a light machine gun team with some spare points. I also kept a 2nd company, but stripped it down to a single Bradley-mounted rifle platoon. Each company also has a Raven recon drone. I also kept the sniper teams in the HQ company to help provide recon, and 4 teams from the man-pad platoon attached to the battalion, as well as a single FO team. I kept the vehicles for the Stinger teams, even though I don't expect them to need to drive anywhere, because each vehicle comes with 4 additional missiles. I don't know how many I'll need, so spending some extra points here is probably better than getting bombed into oblivion. The battalion commander is also in an Abrams, giving me a total of 5 Abrams tanks. For my off-map support, I have 2 sections of M109 Paladins with 3 guns per section, along with several target reference points to support them. I'm not confident I can get across the bridges before the Russians have a chance to get set up, and I'd rather not drive a bunch of vehicles full of troops directly into enemy fire, so I've decided not to cross the water in my initial push. Instead, I'll stop in the tree lines on my side and dismount, then push across using infantry first, with the vehicles giving support and crossing after the infantry have made sure it's relatively safe. I'll be sending 1 rifle platoon to each of the crossing points, along with 2 Abrams each to the left and middle crossings, and a single Abrams to the right crossing. The Stinger teams will set up in the back, with my sniper teams heading to the middle hill in the hopes they might spot something. Overall, my plan is to be relatively cautious. Compared to the World War II titles I'm used to, spotting should be much faster and weapons are far more lethal, while at the same time I also have significantly less units, so I want to take my time and avoid unneeded losses. I also should have the advantage in call-in times and artillery, so I plan on having the big guns do as much of the work as possible. Yeah, at the start of turn one, all my units are going to start moving towards their assigned location. So getting a platoon up into the ridge and tree line across the first bridge. I've got another platoon that's going to head into the central area, and I'm going to drop off some sniper teams onto that little hill in the middle and see if they can make any spots from up there. Stinger teams are just hanging around their vehicles and getting into some cover. And over on the far left side, getting units racing forward. I don't want to push across the bridge too early because I'm worried that my vehicles are just going to be slower and they might not make it. I did make a small mistake here where I have one of my Bradleys I didn't give an order to, so it's just parked in the middle of the road and causing a bit of a traffic jam for everyone else. I did have a drone that got set up into the village area, so it got a bunch of spots for me. Unfortunately, a Tunguska is going to see it and open fire on it and is going to take down my drone quite quickly. But we can at least go back a couple steps here and take a look at what it saw. So looks like wheeled vehicles, so we got BTRs, a couple coming down the hill there, and a couple parked in behind the building. This one is really fortunate, as there's two BTRs parked behind the building. They're probably offloading their inventory, which are going to go into the buildings right there. And I have a TRP set up pretty much right out front of those buildings. So I'm going to get artillery coming down on the building there as quick as possible. And because it's NATO and on a TRP, it's about 2 minutes to get shells on target. So that should catch them before they get a chance to move too far. Turn 2 starts out with a bit of a bang, as over on the right you can see my poor drone falling out of the sky and then crashing into the ground. And with that, there goes all my intel that I was getting on the village side of the map. I do have another drone coming in on the right hand side, but I put a 5-minute delay on it, so it'll be showing up in a future turn. But otherwise, all my units are just still moving forward. I was quite conservative and I'm unloading them quite early, in particular in the middle, which is going to prove to be a bit of a mistake. I should have been a bit more aggressive in the central area, so they're unloading quite far back. I was overall trying to keep my vehicles under tree cover as best I could, just to minimize any enemy drone activity. But over in the village, my Abrams that I have set up is going to catch sight of some enemy infantry moving into the buildings exactly where I thought they would, and I have that artillery strike planned. But it gets a quick machine gun burst, but I don't think it got any casualties. And over on the far side, I'm starting to get some sound contacts as I have infantry moving into the trees, starting to hear some tanks moving up over on the right-hand side. All my units are continuing to move into position. The Abrams hanging down at the back there. He's watching the road to see if anything is going to venture up it. At this point, I am going to turn the trees off, leave it as just nearby trunks. One, it kills my frame rate, and two, you can't really see anything moving in the trees with them turned on. So yeah, everyone's just moving up. I'm going to start getting ready to push my infantry across the water. I'm going to try and get them across into the tree line and then into some buildings. And over on this side, I'm going to try and move them across into the building there. Central area, a little bit sluggish. I've got some tanks set up, hidden in the trees, just waiting to see targets. I didn't want to go too far forward because of ATGMs, so everyone's just hiding until I can identify them. And that artillery coming down now. So a very quick response time. I called that in on turn 1, and it's already starting to land towards the end of turn 3. Over on the far right-hand side, I have a TRP in the tree line there, and I've also started to call in a strike in that position, since I can see a bunch of vehicles starting to line up on that side. That artillery strike is coming into full effect now, hopefully catching any infantry that unloaded from those BTRs. One thing that I missed at the end of last turn is Taki's been doing some remodeling. He's blown a bit of a hole in the wall there, and now it looks like he has a BTR firing its autocannons into this building. I'm not sure if he was trying to blow up more wall and they targeted something different, or if he is just assuming or thought I may have got some infantry in there. But definitely taking care of the wall pretty quick. So I am expecting that this building is going to be occupied shortly, so I'm going to have to keep an eye on that as I start to move across the river, and you can start seeing my infantry getting into the water there on both sides. And now that has blasted all the way through the building, so the shots are actually coming out into the trees on the other side now. So a little bit of a demolition there. He's blown himself a nice clear hole all the way through. You can't see through the other side, but shells are definitely coming in. And then back over onto the right, I'll just backpedal a little bit there. I did very, very briefly spot an infantry squad crossing the stream, and another squad crossing. And then my artillery strike starts to come in, so hopefully that catches some infantry that didn't make it across the water yet. But otherwise, I now know that I have enemy infantry that have made it across on both sides. So lucky I have a couple squads moving up to engage already. Managed to get the first of my infantry across the water and starting to push into the tree line on the opposite side. And here I've got more infantry that are doing the same thing. I'm also bringing up an engineer team that is going to blow a hole in the wall in order to allow me access into the buildings. I do now know that a lot of the infantry teams carry a breach kit, which can blow one wall. But at the time, I thought it was still engineers that had to do it. So that is why I'm waiting for the engineer team to move up. Over on the right, I'm just going to pause and go back a little bit. So over on the right-hand side, I have spotted a BTR parked back there, and two of my infantry squads are starting to engage it with rifle grenades. And some enemy infantry did come across the top of the hill and take some fire. I managed to get one kill, and then I start throwing some grenades over, so hopefully that is going to get rid of anyone else that was thinking about coming over the ridge there. So, continuing with the overly ambitious rifle grenades, but this one actually, nope, that one misses too. I think they fired a couple of their laws as well, also did not hit. And this other rifle grenade, I think this is the one that does it. Yeah, that one connects. And then someone finally gets the bright idea to pull out the javelin and fire a javelin missile. And the turn ends with that javelin missile hovering right in the air there as the BTR is starting to back away. So at the start of next turn, that BTR is probably going to have a very bad time. This is also the turn that my drone arrived on the right-hand side, so we can see right at the end of the turn it showed up, and that's allowed me to see a pair of tanks. So I believe these are T-72s. I'm not great with identifying Cold War and modern era Russian equipment, so if these aren't T-72s, I apologize. I'm going to be calling them T-72s pretty much this entire game. I do know that Taki generally prefers to take quantity over quality, so it wouldn't surprise me if he went with a bit of an older model tank just to get more of them on the field. Since I'm starting to make contact across the entire length of the map now, I'm going to start looking at the left sector, center sector, and then right sector individually. So starting with the left-hand side over here, I get some infantry across the water into a small building. And then over on the left side, I'm moving from the tree line into the buildings, and I do spot some enemy infantry, and it is going to open up with some machine gun fire on me, and I'm going to take my first casualty. And then overhead, you can hear a jet going by, which is something that is greatly concerning to me, considering I only have 3 Stinger teams, and I have no idea how effective they are. So I'm hoping that they're going to do the job, but very concerning to hear the jet streaking by. That machine gun team is going to continue to fire as my troops get across. And then the Bradley is going to make the spot on the machine gunner and open fire, and is going to take him out quite quickly. And hopefully, because they're explosive shells, they've killed anyone that was around there supporting that machine gunner, but that is the only casualty that I'm able to see at this point. In the central sector, I am struggling a little bit because I deployed so early. I probably should have pushed my vehicles up farther before unloading. A couple of units that have made it up to the ridge start coming under fire from a BTR, that autocannon blasting into the trees. I am going to lose a soldier, but the rest of them seem relatively unscathed so far, and I'm starting to get more units up into the tree line, with the snipers now starting to crawl their way up to the ridge to see if they can spot anything, and I've got a Bradley coming up. And then I did find I can cross the shallow streams with vehicles, so I'm starting to move the Bradleys up the stream as well. I'm going to move them so they can get a view into the buildings on the left there, and if possible, bring them around up the stream. And my snipers have also detected some enemy infantry just on the other side of the ridge from them. So that'll be something to watch out for as well, but it looks like more contact is imminent in the central sector. And I'm sure the moment you've been waiting for. Here we have the javelin up in the air, and here we have the intended target. So I'm going to hit play and we can watch this happen. And there we go, good old top attack coming straight down into the top of that BTR and knocking it out. I did decide to move my Abrams up, as there was the tank down there, so the Abrams creeps forward just enough to be able to see that and put a shell right through the turret. So one tank down and no return fire on my Abrams. Over on this little ridge, I do have the Bradley. I just have a fire position order at the top of the ridge, and I have another Bradley coming up that's going to take position next to it and do the same thing. Because I have drone vision into this area now, see the drone has now spotted a couple BTRs, and I have this TRP right here. What I'm doing is I have Excalibur rounds that I've targeted with anti-personnel, and they're going to be falling right on the back of that ridge there. So I'm using the Bradleys to try to prevent the Russian infantry from coming over the ridge by just hopefully pinning them in place until those Excalibur shells can come down in just, I think, about 2 minutes before they land. So fixing them in place and hopefully killing them with the artillery. I was unsure of what water I was able to cross, so I've given a Bradley an order to go across the water. Unfortunately, it can't cross the wider parts of the water here, and it is going to try and go for the bridge. Over on the right-hand side, I'm starting to get some infantry, more infantry across the water, but they are coming under fire. Looks like from the section of trees over there, the bit of a ridge that they were seen across. And the Bradley does get spotted by something with a laser, gets the laser warning, tries to pop smoke and back away, but it is going to get knocked out. So that was an unfortunate loss. And I did lose one troop over on this side to that machine gun fire. I think it's coming from up on this hill, but I don't really get a whole lot of spots to confirm that. But the troops that have made it across the tree line, they're currently sitting in the bottom floor of this building, and I'm going to need to get them up to the top so that they can see over the hedges and into these trees to see what we're dealing with, other than that one machine gunner that I took out. My sniper teams that I'd set up on the back hill can't really see anything through the trees, so I'm starting to move them forward so they can help reinforce this ridge. I'm also moving the two Bradleys over to help reinforce, and fire team moving over to help counter the infantry that I know are on the opposite side of the ridge there. However, a couple BTRs are going to show up, and this sniper team is going to pretty much run straight into them. They're not going to have a very good time taking some machine gun fire, and they're very quickly going to start taking some casualties. However, I do have an Abrams that I've moved up from one of the back tree lines, so he's racing over as quick as he can to try and help counter these BTRs that have shown up. And if you can, get across the water and have kind of open field of view into the entire bit of farmland. And another enemy squad has popped up down on the bottom side of the ridge, so a little bit of fire was starting to go down back and forth between those groups as well. Over in the right-hand sector, my infantry that I have moved into the forwardmost tree line, they're just hanging out there waiting, and they're going to spot some Russian infantry and start engaging. They don't get any kills that I know of with that initial burst, but you can see they start tossing some grenades over, and they're going to start exploding on the other side, hopefully getting some damage in. I'm going to pause and just roll back a little bit here. So I have this Bradley that I'm moving forward a little bit because I know there's a bunch of enemy vehicles down across the river there, or stream. So I have it moving forward, and it's going to spot a BTR and engage with its autocannon, making very quick work of it. trying to make sure it doesn't stray into line of sight of the tank that's hiding in the trees there. But over here on the left side of the right sector, I got a couple BTRs that I can see moving forward. That's the drone spotting those, and I have my second Bradley in there engaging the open ground just to keep those Russian infantry pinned. Hopefully doing a good job of that. But there comes an RPG shot from over in the trees. So I don't spot the offending squad, but RPG does go over and it gets a light wound onto the leader, of course. And then a second RPG shot from the tree line comes in and is going to knock out that Bradley. So my second Bradley down. They are very expensive point-wise, so that is a little bit painful to lose one to an RPG. But I'm definitely starting to have a bit of problems with this middle section, and I need to address it as quick as possible. In the two Bradleys that I've advanced up a little bit here, one of them makes the spot of a BTR and starts opening fire on it. A couple RPG shots come in at it, but both miss, and those came from the upper floor of the buildings here. So it does make pretty quick work of the BTR and then start firing at where the RPGs came from, so hopefully that will take care of them. Over on the farther left side, I'm just going to take a quick step back. So I do spot a bunch more infantry now that my troops are getting into the upper floors, and I do get a shot off with either a grenade or a law through the tree line. It hits this BTR, and since it doesn't shoot back, I'm pretty sure I've knocked it out or at least taken out its gun. But yeah, quite a few Russian troops in the tree line there. At least a full squad, and we're going to start engaging through the windows. So I do want to get these Bradleys closer so that they can start contributing, but I'm still wary of where that ATGM is, so I don't want to move them too far forward. I did move them a little bit, hoping that maybe they could catch a glimpse through the tree line, but they did not. However, I'm just going to pause here. We can take a quick look at what we spotted here. Got a few troops. Looks like they're pinned down. Got the machine gunner there. So doing a pretty good job of keeping them suppressed from up in the window. But the interesting thing is what I have spotted right here. This guy here, there he is, tucked behind a tree. So this is just a guy with a rifle, but I can tell that this is an AT-14. And it is currently not deployed. So I believe it was probably over in this area, and it took the shot at the Bradley, and now Taki is repositioning it so that I don't know where it is, except in its new spot. I've actually seen it from the troops over in the small building that I positioned there. So going to be looking to get some fire onto them as quick as possible, because if I can take that out, it will give me free access across this bridge. I have, an Abrams, 5 Bradleys, another Abrams, all waiting to get across, but I just need to make sure the way is clear before I can do so. Not much of a surprise here. My sniper team has continued to have issues, losing another man and the final one breaking. The Abrams, however, is going to get up there and take a shot and knock out one of the BTRs. Yeah, and one of my Bradleys up on the ridge is going to be firing farther into the right-hand sector, and then the second BTR pops up, and the Abrams takes that one out as well. And then right over here, I've got my sniper team moving up to try and help support, and some more fire going back and forth from the ridge into something. Oh, there we got the partial spot there, so taking some machine gun fire from some Russian infantry hiding in the hedges. And the interesting thing that has happened here... Oh, got some grenade action going on. Quick check in there. So it looks like some infantry crested that little ridge, and my sniper teams have thrown some grenades at them. And it looks like that team is going to start running away now. Which plays into what I've noticed a little bit farther to the side. So a couple grenades go off, and that team is going to start fleeing. And if I go further into the tree line here, I have 3 guys surrendering. So I can see 1 casualty, 2, 3 casualties, and then 3 surrenders, which is interesting because my troops aren't that close. You know, we're 20 some odd meters away up on a ridge. I didn't really have a lot of firepower going at them. That Bradley never ended up spotting them. It was just small arms fire, and yet they've already surrendered. So this is making me think that perhaps Taki has brought conscripts instead of regulars or veterans, and if he's having morale problems already, just I think 7 or 8 turns in, that could very quickly turn the tide of battle, because we got some surrenders and I can already see some guys fleeing. So I could just turn up the pressure and hopefully rout his entire force at this point. Over in the right sector, what looked like was becoming a bit of a fragile situation takes a good turn in my favor. So the Bradley from the center section is going to start shooting the BTR in the rear and take it out. Another BTR comes up and takes both a law shot and then the autocannon fire from my Bradley. So I've turned them off from their fire position to let them engage targets that they see that come up over the ridge. And then the Russian infantry that was on the ridge is starting to flee back down the ridge. This guy comes into line of sight and gets hit. Looks like a grenade and then some small arms fire. And here comes those Excalibur rounds. And these things are great because that was incredibly close to my troops and I took no casualties because they all landed on the backside of the ridge. So GPS guided rounds with the drone doing the spotting. Fantastic job there. And the Abrams I have pushed up. I was going to see if I can maybe catch them through the tree line. Put a shot into that T-72. But it did see some infantry in the tree line and put a cannon shell into him. I believe that's, yeah, there's the casualty. And then right at the end of the turn, I spot, oops, sorry about the camera there. I spot another T-72 hiding in the hedges and catch some fleeing infantry and another BTR. So I'll be looking to engage them in the following turn. I don't really have anything that can deal with the ATGM on this side yet, so while I try to figure out how I'm going to handle it, I'm just letting my 2 fire teams here continue to put some fire into the Russian troops that were in the tree line. So we go in, we can see we're keeping them nicely pinned with rifle grenades and small arm fire. And that was a javelin being fired. So they have decided to fire a javelin at infantry, which is something I didn't actually think they would do. I know on occasion they'll fire like laws and other RPGs at infantry, but was not expecting them to fire a javelin. However, that has given me a bit of an idea. Getting another nice kill there. Perhaps if I have a javelin over in this area, I could see up onto that ridge where that ATGM was and maybe use a javelin to take them out. So that is something I'm going to start exploring. And I can see here that BTR has now definitely been knocked out. So whether it was a law or a rifle grenade, definitely took care of that one. And right at the end of the turn, get another casualty. So my couple fire teams here making pretty good work, and I'm also moving up the Bradleys to get them in on the action as well. In the central sector, I really did not like the RPGs coming that close to my Bradleys, so I'm moving up a little bit and I just have them spraying down the upper floors of the buildings where I think the RPGs came from. And I've got another Bradley moving up the stream here where it's going to get a nice view onto the retreating Russian infantry as they come down off that ridge. And another Bradley moved forward and shooting into where I saw the machine gun fire coming from. So really leaning on the firepower of the Bradleys at this point. I got another Bradley firing at infantry running away. My Abrams taking shots. I believe that was the RPG team that had taken out my Bradley on the far right. They fled backwards and got caught by the Abrams. So yeah, really making good use of my IFVs to put as much firepower as possible and preserve my infantry. After a bit of an explosive last turn, the right sector is calming down a little bit. Bradley is currently firing over towards the side of the ridge there. And some more Russian infantry starting to flee off, so I just have my infantry on hunt orders slowly moving forward. They're going to try and check the backside of this ridge to see if anything survived the artillery strikes. Do still see all the tanks and the BTRs, and these are being spotted by my drone, and I can tell because when I target one, I don't see anyone that can see it, except for way back here, the squad that is called in the drone. So that's how I know what is spotting them. Yeah, just looking to get in and get a good look back there. I did back the Abrams away. I was a little nervous with it being so far forward. It was exposed from this tree line, anything that snuck into this tree line, and anything that came up on this side. So backed him off so he's a little bit safer because I haven't pushed this squad up yet. I do know there is at least some Russian infantry right on the opposite side here, because I was throwing some grenades at them earlier, so I don't know if they're still there. So I'm keeping this squad where they are until I can get them some more support and hopefully a better look. Since I know that Coronet is redeploying, it's going to take a couple of minutes to set up, so I'm going to start moving my Bradleys up a bit more aggressively. Maybe they can catch it while it's still deploying. Yeah, this is the one up here. Actually, it looks like it's finished deploying. Only takes 50 seconds to deploy. It's a little quicker than I thought. So hopefully my Bradleys stay out of line of sight. And I did check these guys. There was quite a large explosion that they fired off that wasn't a javelin, but taking a look at it, these guys don't have laws. They actually have 84s, so a bit heavier of a warhead on those. So that's a big explosion that took out the remainder of the infantry there. So yeah, a couple Bradleys up in position, starting to move more Bradleys up as well, and also brought the Abrams that was back on the road. But now I can hear that jet again, so starting to get a little bit worried that is going to make a strike soon. But yeah, really starting to apply pressure onto the left-hand side here. In the central sector, I've had the infantry that were going across the river that came under fire. I've had them stop. I don't want them to run towards the building because I'm pretty sure it's occupied. And they were taking fire from the hill, which they finally made a spot on, so they're starting to put some return fire in. And then over on the ridge, my snipers and the XO squad, I believe it was, have made it to the ridge and get a clear line of sight out. They can see enemy infantry there, and then also 2 more tanks and another BTR, which starts shooting at them and is going to shred them quite quickly with those airburst rounds. So I take a bunch of casualties there from a quick blast, but towards the left part of the central section here, I have more infantry that are making it across the water. And here comes an artillery barrage up onto that hill. So just trying to clear out whatever was shooting at me. I do lose a troop coming across. He took some small arms fire from up on the ridge right before the artillery came down. So another small section of resistance with a couple tanks, a couple vehicles, and hopefully the infantry that was up there just got smoked because that was a really close hit. In the right sector, I'm pushing my infantry forward, moving a squad over here on the right to support the fire team that was already there. My Bradley does get a laser warning, pop smoke, and backs away. It does manage to break whatever was lasering it before getting blown up by getting back down the ridge. Bradley in the tree line towards the center there starts to spot some infantry, and then as my fire teams get together here and start to move forward, I do spot some Russian soldiers, and a very brief firefight, quite intense, opens up here. A grenade does go off in the middle of my squad. Multiple grenades go off in the middle of my squad. However, I don't take any casualties. So this fire team gets 2 wounded, and this one gets 2 wounded, but that's 2 grenades going off in the middle of them, and no one dies. And you can see I'm tossing some grenades back, and the Russian infantry starts to flee back into the forest. So I've been hearing that jet streak overhead periodically throughout the game, and I guess I got close enough because here we have a Stinger taking a shot, firing a missile at it. And there we go, aircraft destroyed. And in the background there, just off map, you're going to see it come crashing down. So yeah, one of the Stinger teams making the spot on the incoming jet and managing to take it down in just 1 missile without the jet being able to do anything. So yeah, I will take that. Very good job, Stinger team. On the left-hand side, I'm continuing my advance. I do have my squad in the building that is able to see the Cornet up there starting to fire at them, just trying to keep it suppressed. So they're going to start firing rifle grenades and some small arms fire because I gave them a direct target order. I have spotted another ATGM up on the ridge, so another thing to watch out for. On the right there, my Abrams is advancing up to the bridge and makes some infantry spots and starts firing at them. You can see over on this side, a bunch of RPGs are coming from the buildings that I had previously hit with artillery. Those are coming very close for comfort, but the Bradley is going to see one of the teams that was shooting at it and start returning fire. And there's a javelin being fired right into that ATGM team, taking it out. So that was what I was hoping for after I learned that they will actually fire their javelins at infantry. I gave them that target order, hoping that the javelin gunner would do exactly that. So that should be one ATGM team down. I know I have another one up here that I'm going to have to deal with, and I know there's still some infantry surviving in the buildings. One of the reasons why I positioned my Bradleys like this is all these intervening trees. Just increases the chance that any RPG shots that are coming towards them or missiles coming towards them are going to hit a tree instead of the Bradley. So that's why I kind of left them behind multiple layers of trees if I could. In the central sector, my Bradley along the stream, continuing to fire at any infantry that it sees. It's in a great flanking position to fire up the stream at anything either coming to the ridge or coming down off the ridge. One of the T-72s looks like it's moved up the road and is heading into the forest. Yeah, I got a good spot on it as it's doing so. And my artillery just continuing to come down onto the small hill there, take out any infantry that were positioned up. I'm starting to move a Abrams up, since I know there's a pair of T-72s. I'm going to see if I can get it into the trees and get line of sight. And it is going to see something briefly, but then turns its turret back as it loses the spot. Let's see if it gets anything. I believe it's going to see that one poor infantryman out in the field and take a shot at him. Yep, there it goes. It's a cannon shell with an airburst right over top of one poor infantryman in a field. But yeah, so lose sight of a tank there. Got the one tank hiding in the trees. Maybe a little bit of infantry left. Looks like this guy's decided to get out of there. But hopefully I am slowly breaking down this position and can make a good push in to clear it out in very short order. It appears that everything that I had spotted down in this area is mostly taken care of because I haven't seen any fire coming from them this turn. 11 turns into the game, Taki's artillery finally starts coming down on me. Looks like he was targeting where the Abrams was, so they're just kind of landing in the back. Just got a couple platoon leaders, a company leader, and a recon team there. Over in the ridge, I have pushed forward, and I got far enough forward that some PTRs that are still alive got line of sight and started shredding my troops. And over here, I've run into a Russian infantry squad, and I'm starting to take some casualties. You also saw 3 more shells come down. Those were Excalibur rounds aimed at the tank that was in behind there. Unfortunately, the Tunguska did shoot down my drone, so I've now lost all my recon in back. Surprised it took so many turns for it to make that spot. My troops are going to start falling back there as they've taken a whole bunch of casualties, and the squad on this side also started to fall back a little. And I am just going to jump back because a bunch of stuff happened over on this side too, so let's head back to the start of the turn and we can watch this engagement. So that previous close range engagement there continues on, my infantry firing at whatever they can, mostly just suppressing the area. I do manage to, I think it was a rifle grenade, got the penetration on that, and that was one of the BTRs that was doing a bunch of damage to my troops. So I do have this Bradley starting to move up. At this point I was starting to feel confident that my infantry had suppressed any Russians well enough that they weren't going to get an RPG shot on. So I moved it up and I have given it a target position order into the tree line, but it actually makes a spot and just starts firing directly at what it saw. You can see the poor Russian infantry trying to escape the Bradley there. So progress on this side of the right, not so much progress on to the other side of the right-hand sector, as I've had to fall back a little bit in the face of casualties. And my engineer team has made it to the wall, and they're going to start setting up their charges to blast a hole. In preparation for that, I'm starting to move my squad split into a couple fire teams so that they're ready to go through. There's definitely still some infantry hanging out around this area. You can see my squad in the 3-story building starting to put some machine gun fire at them while he's just kind of pinned and cowering. Pushing my vehicles forward at this point because I know one ATGM is down. I know there's a second one, but it's not going to be able to take out all of my vehicles at once. So at this point, I'm willing to sacrifice one if needed in order to get fire onto the others. So I do get a laser warning on a Bradley. It's going to pop smoke and start backing away. But the missile, you're going to see the explosion in the trees there. So the missile doesn't quite connect, and that Bradley is safe, and that guy's going to be reloading. So I have a small opportunity to hit him while he reloads. I have, and I believe this is my XO team. I've moved them up, and I'm pushing them forward in order to see what's left in the tree line, and they did take a little bit of small arms fire right at the end there, so I know something is still alive in these trees. But I'm using them because I don't really have much else for them to do, so they're just a little 2-man team that I can use to recon with. Central sector, my artillery barrage continues. I have another Bradley that's moved up, and I'm starting to fire at the last remaining second floor. At this point, I've decided I'm just going to destroy all of the second floors up there so no one can try to RPG me. Still catching glimpses of infantry moving through the trees, engaging with some small arms fire as they can. Another Bradley is going to try and hook around as I'm going to try and clear anything on the tracks. And I'm going to pause and go back just a little bit here to watch this because it's always nice to see an Abrams fire. So this is that same Abrams that has just wiped out a guy in the field. This time it is going to get the spot on the T-72 at the end of the road. Lines up and puts a shot right through it, knocking it out in one shot. Good shot to the lower hull. So I know there's one more T-72 hiding in these trees somewhere. I'll have to find some way of getting to that, but otherwise the one watching the road is taken out. And as the turn starts to come to a close, I spot some more Russian infantry through the trees and some more small arms fire from my fire teams that are set up. Eventually, I'm gonna have to rush them forward and clear that out properly, but for now, I'm content with just letting them sit back and get some opportunity shots in whenever they can. It seems my infantry got shredded when they came up to the edge of the ridge by vehicles. It looks like I'm gonna have to use vehicles of my own, so I'm moving my Abrams forward again and moving a Bradley forward. You can see I took casualty, the commander, platoon HQ, of course, always the commander. Took some shrapnel from artillery. But here, the Bradley's moved up and it spotted that T-72 that I hit with the Excalibur rounds and just starts blasting the crap out of it with his autocannon. Does get a laser warning, so the T-72 is aiming back, but then the ammo explodes. And after a large amount of autocannon fire, that T-72 is going to go up in a big ball of flames. On the farthest outskirts here on the right, I did move my infantry forward again. They're now on the opposite side of that ridge and have confirmed that no enemy infantry are surviving on this side, but they do make a spot over in the corner and start to engage with small arms fire, getting one kill and pinning the other. I'm going to start being more aggressive with my vehicles and start pushing them forward more. One of my Bradleys does get line of sight, and then a second onto the ATGM team, and between both of them firing at it, it's no longer deployed. I don't know if he was packing it up to try moving it, or if I've undeployed it by shooting at it, but the Bradleys are going to continue to hammer its location, which should take care of it. I'm starting to advance my infantry up as well, with my engineers having gone through the hole they blew and starting to get into the buildings and not being shot at, so it looks like the central area might be a little bit clear. I also have a Bradley that's moved up to help cover off the 3-story building that I think is occupied. That will hopefully give a chance for these infantry teams to start advancing as well. But overall, well, some shots coming in from this guy from way over on the opposite side. So overall, looking extremely good for me over on this left side. I think I've pretty much wiped out all the resistance. There's just maybe a little bit up on the hill. I picked up the spot on a BTR up at the top. But for the most part, it feels like I can just continue to roll right through the village to the opposite side. In the central sector, artillery is still raining down on the hill. I can see some Russian infantry starting to flee down it. And one of my Bradleys that's been moving up the stream catches another BTR out in the open and starts pummeling it with its autocannon. At this point, I think I had the artillery set to fire the remainder of its ammunition, so it's just going to hammer that location until it runs dry. Probably had about 80 or 90 shells left. So Bradley does good work on taking out the BTR very quickly. And this sector is also starting to quiet down quite a bit. But there is still a little bit of resistance left, as I know there's a couple BTRs, and they get spotted right there by another Bradley that I moved forward. So first, the Bradley machine guns down Russian infantry, and then turns its autocannon to the BTRs that I can see and starts blasting one, getting a lot of penetrations on it before the turn ends. So again, central sector looking pretty well cleared, along with the leftmost sector. In the right-hand sector, more artillery shells coming down. Other than a couple shrapnel wounds, they haven't really been very effective. Over on the ridge, one of my Bradleys has moved up and taken position right on the ridge, and it's going to start to spot some remaining enemy infantry and blast them with its autocannon. I'm hoping nothing left down here has any RPGs, but it seems like I've done a pretty good job of shredding most of them. Over onto the right, there's still a small amount of Russian infantry holed up in the corner here by the edge of the map, and my infantry is going to be engaging them. They've been going back and forth for a couple turns now, and looks like they're going to get one casualty there. A couple rifle grenades going off among them. Should hopefully do a pretty good job of clearing out anything they can't see that still might be there. But overall, even on this right side, things are starting to quiet down a little bit, and it definitely appears that all along the line, I've done a pretty good job of breaking through, and it seems like the Russian forces are in the midst of collapsing. Since it feels like I've got my opponent pretty well defeated, I'm going to start getting a lot more aggressive now, moving infantry up into buildings, pushing my vehicles farther forward, spot a BTR on the other side of the hill, and going to get a shot off with an AT weapon, which is going to miss. Its second one is also going to miss. A third one is going to miss. The fourth one is going to miss. The fifth one is going to miss. The sixth one is going to miss. The seventh one is going to land a hit. Great show of accuracy there. I am going to go back a little bit so we can see some of these Bradleys in action after all of that. So this building, I know there's still some infantry in it. I have a Bradley firing at it, and I actually call in another artillery strike on it just to be absolutely certain that I've got it cleared out. My Bradley that gets to the junction starts firing down at a BTR that it spotted. I have another Bradley that's going to push forward to the front road, and my Abrams is going to stop at this junction as well. So Abrams is going to finish off that BTR. This Bradley that pushed forward is going to get a laser warning from the BTRs, but it is going to get its shots off first. And then we have an engagement here with the T-72, which is going to get a penetration on the front hull of my Abrams, and it is going to kill the driver. So a little bit surprising that a T-72 shot is going to get a penetration, but I guess it can happen. We're at fairly close range. So my first damage to an Abrams of this game, but otherwise on the left sector here, done an incredible amount of damage and gained quite a bit of ground. Hey, in the central sector, we caught a little bit of this in the background of the left sector, but the Bradley that popped over the stream is continuing to fire at these two BTRs that it spotted, so it finishes one off, and then takes aim at the second one, having a little bit of trouble getting through the trees, but eventually starts getting some shots through, getting plenty of penetrations. And you can see I brought my Abrams up to the rail tracks. And this BTR is going to attempt to back away, but it is not going to do so. And here we can actually see that there's two T-72s. There's the one that shot my Abrams, and there's also the one that I saw move in. So there were three here, as I thought there were only two initially. And there's another BTR getting spotted and hit by the Bradley. So this Bradley in this turn gets one BTR kill, 2, 3, and then start shooting a fourth. So that Bradley got itself into an extremely good position and is just unloading into the Russian backline here. On the right-hand sector, I'm going to advance my Bradley at the map edge there. I'm using the infantry to suppress the Russian squad, and then have the Bradley move forward and finish them off. I'm also moving the Abrams up ahead. And I'm starting to move some infantry back towards the ridge again, as I feel like I've cleared out a lot of the vehicles that were giving them some trouble. A BTR backs away into the view of a Bradley, which is going to start shredding it with the autocannon. Still have that T-72 there, but it's going to take a hit from something, and I'm just going to pause and go back here, because that was a tow missile, and it came from all the way down here. So this Bradley on the far side of the map has spotted that tank. If we hit play here, lines up the shot and fires the missile. And we see way down there, there's the penetration. And then, I'll pause it and head back over. It is also going to see that BTR that is on the rail line there and begin shooting it with the autocannon, taking that out as well. So these Bradleys in these last few turns have just been doing an absolutely incredible amount of damage, shredding units, both infantry, vehicles. It doesn't matter if they can see it, they're taking it out. And the last remnants of Russian infantry seem to be falling back out of the forest and trying to get across the stream again. With the Russian flank blown wide open now, I start to push even farther up the streets with my infantry and vehicles. The T-72 gets an armor spall on the Abrams again. This time the Abrams does get a return shot in and takes out the T-72. So that Abrams is still operational, just missing the driver. The Bradley that's been moving up the street is continuing to hammer away at some BTRs. That one was already pretty well shot up from one in the central sector, but it gets finished off. Over in the little central section of buildings, I do start taking some fire from some infantry. I do lose a Bradley to an RPG, and this machine gun fire is going to very quickly put some casualties onto my troops. I lose several of them right there. 2 go down from that squad, but a Bradley starts to get its autocannon into their position and is going to very quickly suppress and finish them off. My Abrams from the central sector is going to start rolling forward. It's now crossed the stream and is mowing down some bushes there as it gets onto the road. Its goal is to take out that last T-72 that I know is hiding in the trees. I've got the partial spot marker where the Abrams thinks it is, so it's just going to roll forward and look around. And as it gets past the trees, there it is, and gives it a good shot right in the back of the hull, taking it down. So as far as I know, that is all of the enemy armor that was here. So I believe I've now knocked out all of his tanks. As I move forward on the right-hand sector, more Russian infantry are seen fleeing, heading back across the stream, taking fire the entire time they do. I'm pushing the Abrams forward up across the bridge, and it actually starts taking some fire into the side, getting some partial penetrations and some spalling, taking fire from a BTR. So it's going to pop smoke and start trying to back away as my infantry and Bradley come across some Russian forces. The Abrams does a quick shot and takes out the BTR, well, the Bradley starts opening fire on all the infantry. I do lose one man myself, but at the same time, I take down a couple Russians. And the remainder of the Russian forces are starting to run out of the forest, but the Abrams, now in a better position, is resuming firing, getting a cannon shot, and then using the coax machine guns to get a couple more kills as well. And the Bradley continues to fire on the last little bits of infantry that are back there. And some small groups of infantry still being spotted in the trees, where my infantry are firing on them. You can see this squad here took a lot of casualties up on the ridge. In fact, now that I'm up on the ridge, I can see quite a few Russian casualties. So this is either from the artillery or the Bradleys when they were firing into the tree line earlier. And after 15 turns, Taki has decided to surrender. As much as I suspected, his force has been completely shredded, and I've broken through on multiple parts of his line, and at this point I would mostly just be driving around cleaning up his troops. So we have a US Army total victory because of the surrender. For casualties, I lost 15 men and I had 12 wounded. I lost 3 armored vehicles, which were Bradleys, and 2 aircraft, which were my 2 drones. On the Russian side, there are 114 men killed, 37 wounded, 5 are prisoners. I took out 6 tanks and 18 armored vehicles, as well as 1 aircraft. Right, taking a look at the final map positions here, I have definitely cleaned him out on the right-hand side. There's a couple ATGM teams hiding in a wheat field in the back, a couple vehicles, and a Tunguska. And there's another one on the opposite side. Now, interesting to note, if you can see in the bottom corner, it's probably a little small, but this is the Tunguska that got both drone kills, even though there is one over on this side and a drone parked right over top of the bridge. It was actually the one on the opposite side of the map that ended up getting the spot and getting the kill. So, yeah, completely cleared out on this side. He's got a couple squads, 2 guys left here, 1 guy from the crew, and just 2 guys left alive. A few scattered infantry in the middle, another 2 there, another 2 there. 2 guys hiding but broken over on the edge. Fortunately, my infantry never ended up spotting them, but they're right on the edge of the tree line there. Another just pair of guys hiding. He did have a reasonable amount of units left over in the village area, but nothing that would be able to stand up to this entire force being able to swing around through the open and then come in off the flank. Another ATGM team was hidden. For ATGM teams up here, it looks like the ones that Bradley was firing at did actually manage to get out of there, and they still have their launcher as well, so a successful fallback for them. But the one that was right there that I fired the javelin at, they are just gone, all 3 of them. So the javelin, incredibly effective at that, not a use I would have thought for them, but incredibly effective. And he does actually have 1 more tank, and yes, I can see now they are T-72B3s. So he had 1 piece of armor that was left watching. I guess if I came around a little bit too far, he would have been able to get them. There was also still a BTR here. It looks like this BTR was probably taken out by the artillery, one of the barrages, and just a couple infantry left in various buildings. For myself, I think most of my kills were the Bradleys. If I take a look, this one has 8 kills. This one has 7 and 2 BTRs, 12 infantry and a tank. Abrams here with 13 infantry, a tank, and an APC. And the APC. What else we have? Some infantry getting some casualties. This one, another 10 casualties from the Bradley that came up onto the tracks, and another 3 BTRs. Abrams with 15 infantry, 2 tanks, 2 BTRs, 9 infantry and a BTR on a Bradley. Some of the guys over here probably got a lot. Nothing from him. This was the Bradley that fired all the way down the train tracks. 13 infantry, the T-72, and a BTR. T-72 for the Abrams. So yeah, a lot of my kills coming from these Bradleys. They just did such a fantastic job of killing everything they came across. Infantry, BTRs, tanks, didn't matter. If they got line of sight on it, they were destroying it. First time using the Bradleys extensively like this, and I have to say I was pretty impressed with them. So overall, this was a very fun game. It was my first introduction to a Black Sea game, and it was definitely quite a bit different from my usual World War II experiences, and I greatly enjoyed this one, and huge thanks to Taki for being an excellent opponent as always, and thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.